Hello everybody and welcome back. Thanks for tuning into my channel. I am Dominic, the host of the Android Factory. In today's episode we're going to talk about tab layouts and specifically implementing them with the view pager, specifically view pager 2 here. So if we take a look at the activity, pretty bare bones, basically nothing other than having view binding set up here. But if we do take a look at the layout, I've left it over here in the blueprint mode just because it's easier to see than just a plain white screen. But we do have a few views here, basically the bare minimum that we need to get this up and running. So we have a tab layout that's stuck to the top. This is going to be where the different tabs are that the user can select or swipe between. A little bit of standard attribute setting on this on these views here. We are just setting the height to be wrap content, and I guess the only other thing to note here is this tab mode, which we've set to auto for the time being, but there are a few we can toggle between. And then the actual bread and butter here of what the user will see is the view pager 2. This is basically going to hold the different fragments that the user is able to kind of tab between. We set the height and width to 0, and we basically tell it to take up as much room on screen other than what exists for the tab layout. So pretty straightforward here in terms of XML. And let's go ahead and bounce over to the activity now. So as I mentioned, we are going to be working with fragments to actually get the different pages that the user can kind of bounce between. But first we need to do a little bit of additional setup. So there is something here called the TabLayout Mediator, which we can go ahead and create an instance of. Taking a look at the first constructor, we have a tab layout, a view pager 2, and then a tab configuration strategy. Very interesting, but we'll dive into that. So the first two are pretty straightforward. We're just going to go ahead and fetch them from the XML there, from our binding. And then this one in particular, it's going to look a little weird for right now, but this is basically our implementation of the tab configuration strategy, which if we click into it is an interface that just has one function here, two parameters passed in, the tab and the position at which like that tab exists, let's say, inside of the tab layout. So that's why we can go ahead and kind of have this trailing lambda. It's just one function, and then here are the two parameters that we get passed to us. Yep, and then just taking a look at the documentation, call to configure a tab at a particular position. So this is all kind of config info, right? So what we can easily do here is we can switch on the position of the tabs here, and there's going to be a little bit of connectivity between the adapter that we actually need to implement and this little code here. So for now, we're just going to hard code things, and then we're going to maybe build it a little bit more scalable. So we will just do red, blue, green, kind of act as a few different like options, so to speak. And I'm sorry, I forgot something here. What we want to do is configure these tabs, and specifically what we're looking to do here is we are trying to set the text for the different tabs. That's kind of the main use case here for the strategy that I've seen. So we can just very easily say when the position is 0, i.e. the first one, that'll be the red, and then the last one here, the third tab available, will be green, just to stick with, I guess I should actually flip these because that makes more sense, right? RGB. Sorry about that. And then quite easily we can actually just call TabLayout Mediator.Attach, and that will go ahead and kind of blend the two features, the two UI elements as they work with one another. This kind of is the glue between at least the name of the different tabs that we have. But as I mentioned, I said this a little bit earlier talking about an adapter. And so this is not going to be a RecyclerView.Adapter, but it's going to kind of work similar. You can probably see some similarities. And so we're just going to implement that really quickly here as just a simple class. We can call it the myAdapter class. This does need, we'll leave it as the app.compat activity, which is what the main activity extends. And this is going to be a fragment state adapter. And as we can see here, we should be able to just pass that activity into the super constructor. That's the largest reason we needed it. And then otherwise, there's a few methods here that we need to implement in order to be an adapter. You can see it's a part of the view pager 2. So this is now a little bit of configuration on the view pager side of things. And if we look at these functions as they come in, We have a get item count and a create fragment. Kind of feels similar to the, like, I think it's called get item count on the RecyclerView.Adapter, and then you have the on create view holder, on bind view holder, that kind of stuff. It kind of works a little similar here. For the time being, just to get something up and running, we're going to return 3 here as just a hard-coded amount, and this is what I was talking about, where it's going to start to bleed into some of this logic here, because this tab layout mediator needs to kind of understand how many positions there are in order for it to properly come up with the logic to name each one of these tabs. And so 3 is hard-coded, so it's not the best right now, but you can kind of see how these things are a little bit connected. And then otherwise here, we basically need, in this create fragment, we need to return an instance of a fragment. So here there's a few different things that we can do. We're going to go with the, like, I'm not going to say standard, I'm going to say like reusable approach, where we can actually just reuse the same fragment, passing it a few different arguments maybe along the way to differentiate the fragments from one another. And so if that didn't make sense, just sit tight, it'll make sense in a little bit here, but point is that we actually need a fragment. All right, so let's call this a view pager fragment. Very easily, this is going to just extend our Android X fragment. And for now, that's all we need to do, right? Because we just need to kind of get this to compile properly. So what we can do here is we can just say, at this point, we can just return like a new instance of our view pager fragment if we really wanted to, and that would just set the new, just create a new view pager for every tab that we have displayed here. So that's 3 at the moment. But what's a little bit better, and I think it's probably the best way to go, is they give you the position inside of this function. So you can actually go ahead and use that to your advantage and kind of return something special, let's say. Or you can at least have a little bit more understanding of which fragments you are inflating. So in the else block here, to satisfy the when statement, we're just going to simply throw something, because we shouldn't end up in that block. But you can see this is a little bit dangerous, because if we just decided to return 4 here, or this number here, obviously once we get past the first 3 fragments, this is just not going to work well, right? That'll just crash, and also we won't even have names for them after the first 3. So like I said, bear with me here, we are just going to go with a hard-coded approach, but we will fix that soon enough. So the only other thing that we need to do here is we actually need to set this adapter on our view pager here. So we can very easily, much like a recycler view, set the adapter on the view pager to be an instance of my adapter, and the activity here is this, and then we can attach the tab layout mediator afterwards. I do actually believe, yes, I do actually believe that you need to set the adapter before you can actually make this this call to the attach, otherwise it will crash for you. But here we go. As we can see here, there is more or less nothing. It's very difficult to tell that there are fragments here, but trust me, there are fragments here. Well, actually, maybe not, because we haven't given it a layout. So let's go ahead and do that really quickly. Okay, and as we can see here, gone ahead and just created a layout for this fragment underscore view underscore pager, and it simply just has a text view here that says the word fragment in the middle of it, pretty bare bones, and then here, in the activity, inside of our view pager fragment, we just go ahead and pass that layout ID into the constructor of our fragment, and now when we rerun it, you can see here that underneath the red tab, we see fragment. And if we flip over to any of these, we do see fragment again. You can also have the user swipe between these two, or between any of the 3. You can see that the different selection color, this like purple color, kind of denotes which element has been selected. So that all just works out of the box, and that's really convenient. But again, it doesn't really look too unique. It doesn't really look very helpful. It's kind of all just saying fragment, and that's not really the best. And as we can see here, we just inflate the same instance of it 3 times and don't really provide any info to this fragment about which quote-unquote fragment it is. Which instance of the view pager fragment are you? Kind of idea. So we can go ahead and clean that up pretty quickly. And so we can start here by creating a list of information that's going to help all of these different fragment, or the same fragment, differentiate itself from the different tabs here. So let's just call this fragment data. It's going to be a list of something called fragment data, which we'll go ahead and create. So I'm going to just have a fragment data list. And then this is going to kind of look like fragment data, kind of look like this, right? So it will have maybe the name, so we'll go with red, and then we'll go with the what's it called, the hex orientation for the color, so RGB. So this will be FF0000, right? Is that 4? Yeah. And we can go ahead and kind of change these two around here, and this one will be green and this one will be blue. Let's go ahead and just take those zeros and move them there, and then let's take these zeros and move them there, right? We're just simply going to create this fragment data here, and it's going to be we'll say val like title, which is going to be a string, and val hex, which is also going to be a string, right? Now what we can do here is we can actually have, we can ask the, we don't even need to ask or have a when statement there, but we can just look at our fragment data list at the particular position, and we'll just set the .title. We will just set the tab.text equal to that, right? And then we don't need any of this, which is fantastic. That cleans our data up a little bit. And then in here, we're going to actually just pass in the fragment data list so that now the adapter can work with it as well, right? And then here we can very easily return the fragment data list dot size. Looks very familiar to the RecyclerView.Adapter implementation, does it not? And then here we're going to actually also alter this create fragment to kind of look like this here, but I just want to create one little, I guess I don't really need to create that helper function at all, really. We can just do it all in place. So we're going to, let's just do it here. We're going to return a view pager fragment. However, we are going to also apply on it and say arguments equals bundle. Again, apply, a little nesting apply block, quite interesting. And we're going to call like put string, and let's leave it with hex color. And then this here is going to be the fragment data list at position dot hex, very nicely. And then this is all, let's call it scalable, quote unquote, right? Because now this adapter is going to work with basically how big the size of this list is. So we're removing the hard-codedness here, and instead that hard-coded nature is going to be coming from this information, which is, you know, pretty helpful. And then in here, what we're going to do is we're actually going to need to fetch this argument here, this hex color, and then we're just going to set the background of each one of these pages here to be the corresponding color associated with them, right? So let's create a private val, let's call it hex color. We'll leave it as hex color string, which is going to be a string. We will use the by lazy block, and we will call require arguments dot get string, and this is going to be the hex color. And I guess if we fail to find something, we can do I don't know, E4, kind of like a standard gray color kind of thing, probably around the color of this text really quickly, just so that we handle the error situation. And now inside of the on view created, we're simply going to find the view by its ID. This is going to be the constraint layout r.id.root. And this again just is the constraint layout root right here for the fragment. And then we can very easily call set background color. And the background color here is going to be, I believe we can do color, yeah, color.parseColor, and we can pass it the hex color string, and then that thing knows how to resolve a color out of a properly formatted hex code. or a hex code like this. So I guess if we want to all uppercase, make everything look good. Okay, so let's give this a whirl here. Let's go ahead and run this and see how it looks. And so now we can see here we clearly have a red fragment, a green fragment, and a blue fragment. Obviously the text is still saying the same because that's hard-coded from the layout, but point is that as colorful as it is, we do have different fragments here. You can see exactly where they start and end, as the user is allowed to kind of swipe between them. And most importantly, we can just continuously add a handful of these. Everything here is scalable. So obviously this, we could change the name here. Blue 1, that'll be blue 2, blue 3, blue 4, 5, and 6. So let's go ahead and see how that looks. And as we can see here, as we would expect, these different tabs are here, and you can actually see the tabs up top scrolling with this content. That is like really nice, and you actually can scroll the tabs themselves, which is also really cool. This is a product of the fact of how we have the XML defined here, as in that it is auto. There are a few other modes here, that is auto, scrollable, and fixed. The idea, I'm interested to see how fixed is going to work with this one, but auto will automatically toggle between scrollable and fixed based upon how many are there. Yeah. So the fixed, as we see here, forces, however many there are, that width or that location to kind of be divided by that many, right? So this is the red, green, and blue, and then we have all of our additional blues after it, right? So you can't scroll, you can see all the tabs up front, and that's, kind of convenient. The benefit of that is when you know that you're going to have like a finite number of them, you can kind of have just these 3 or 4 or 5 or 2, whatever it is that's pretty common, and they'll take up as much room as they can. It's kind of just the fixed width as much as they can so that all of them can fit on the screen. So that's really, really nice. And so as we can see, the fixed makes them take up the screen. The auto will kind of detect what it needs to do, and the scrollable, I believe, is also interesting because if you set it to that and it doesn't require all of them to be, or it doesn't require all the room, it'll actually kind of just look like this left justified, which is also a pretty nice looking way to display tabs. So it kind of depends on your need here. I normally don't do auto, mainly because I don't like the centered tabs there. I'll either do fixed or scrollable to kind of force them to take up the whole width, or have this little left align kind of thing. You can go ahead and apply styling to the tab layout, so there are different colors for the different selected ones and all that kind of stuff. But that's outside of the scope of this video here. But point is that this this content is pretty much it. I mean, we have the tab layout mediator that kind of manages the two, kind of blends the two together, and then basically as the user clicks any of these items or scrolls through them, that content works, or those interactions work with the adapter that is set on the view pager to actually accomplish the navigation that you would expect. Inside of here, we're kind of doing things the old school way as far as creating a fragment and giving it bundle, or giving it a bundle and giving it some information along the way to kind of help it differentiate. But it's also quite common that you just need 3 different fragments, and those 3 different fragments have 3 different functionalities. And so in that case, you can have that return when, and you switch on the position, and if it's 0, 1, or 2, you can have the newsfeed fragment, the discover fragment, and then the profile fragment, right? And you can kind of just hard code those 3 in. And then they can all be their own fragments here and just implemented as they would normally be with regular fragments. But in this case, we're just making use of the same one, feeding it some more information. So this actually looks very similar to the RecyclerView.Adapter implementation, where we have a different view holder and we're just telling it to bind differently. That's basically what we're doing here. Let me know in the comments how you feel about this, if this makes sense. Some of this is kind of all over the place because it's just in one file. I enjoyed bringing this out to you guys, so thank you for watching. If you are brand new, consider subscribing. Definitely smash that like button to help this get out there to other people who need it, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks.